So, welcome everybody to Taverns and Caverns. I am Rusty, and I am an RPG enthusiast and hobbyist. This is the channel that I'm starting. I've been very inspired by all kinds of things that I've been seeing online about role playing, D&D, etc. And my wife has been running a vlog for a while and has recently started doing a series called Garage Quest, specifically about D&D. And I realized that I had a lot more to say, so that's kind of the genesis of this. I'm going to be taking it in a slightly different direction, but anyway, I hope to be able to share my experience and my little chips and tips and tricks and know-how, and kind of help bring that to other people who are interested. So, from my perspective, there are three main elements to a role-playing game, and that's what this channel is going to be focused on. So before I even get started on what those three things are, I feel it's important for me to make a universal disclaimer about the channel. The views and opinions represented in anything that I say or do or show you or encourage on this channel is purely my opinion, and doesn't necessarily represent what I think is the only way or the right way. It's just my way, and that's primarily what I'm going to be focusing on is gamers who are like me and who have similar interests to me. I think there are a lot of you out there, and hopefully this vibes with you. So anyway, we're going to focus on these three topics, and that's going to be interaction, like social interaction, world building, and then the gaming slash crafting side of the hobby. So the social interaction element of an RPG is absolutely the most crucial to the experience. And mastering this skill, both as a DM and as a player, is one of the most vital parts of getting the most out of your sessions together. You want to cultivate the ability to interact and engage and improvise, and collaborate with each other to respond to the various ideas thrown around in the given setting that you've created for your sessions, and also acknowledging that it's not just about what the DM has planned and what the DM is writing. It's really about the ebb and flow of all the minds at the table. It's like jazz music. Everyone's following the chart, so to speak, but coming up with their own motifs, melodies, harmonies, etc. Acknowledging that the social side is really the core of what makes your role playing experience, and I think that this is kind of almost underrepresented in a lot of the media that I see out there on the internet about role-playing D&D in particular. There's plenty dedicated to lore and power gaming type mechanics, but the aspect of sitting down and like the techniques to get the most out of playing together, there's not really a lot out there, and that's one of the things I really hope to focus on with you, not just as DM, but as a player. After social interaction, I would say world building is the next most significant part of role-playing. And that's not just limited to what the dungeon master does before the session in coming up with characters and encounters, etc. The players themselves are actively engaged in building this world, because their choices and actions in the world should ripple and create consequences that are meaningful to the story. This element is, again, it's one of those things that's often neglected in talking about like what it means to play D&D well, at least. Knowing how to work together as player and DM is a really important part of building these long-term and short-term narratives that are so crucial to playing a successful role-playing campaign. So last on the list, would be the mechanical, like the gaming and crafting elements to the RPG hobby. And mechanics are not necessarily the least important element of successful role playing, but if you're already um, having really, really engaging social interaction at the table, and you're creating really epic stories and playing them out through dialogue and DM monologuing and NPC interactions, you're already winning the game. But mastering the mechanics of your role playing platform really kind of can elevate the possibility of what's out there. Knowing the ins and outs of it make for another level of intricacy that just heighten the experience for everyone. And you know, knowing the lore and the rules is just it's another one of those things that kind of unites everyone together and creates more or less a simulation of physics or gravity or the laws of nature, that we all kind of share and perceive in the real world around us. So this would not so much include, notions of power gaming or optimization, but, we're definitely going to want to discuss things like house rules and, miniatures and maps and, some of the actual physical things that are involved in running a game, which are not insignificant. I've mentioned a couple times the notion of winning an RPG, and I wanted to explore that just a little bit. Um, so, unlike a video game or most board games or sports, there's not like a telic objective. That is something that has a beginning and an end, in which you're then evaluated and ranked winner or loser or, placed in some kind of order. It's it's totally different. And the only way I can really say it is just if you walk out of an RPG session like feeling excited, like you would just come out of a movie, and you wouldn't have rather just been at home watching TV or something on Netflix, then you just won it at role playing. Like sharing that experience of like larger than life fiction and um, a really engaging story, as well as like this kind of like real face to face contact that you get. It's just such an unusual and really enriching thing to experience. And if you have all of those components there and you walk out of there feeling excited and you just shared this awesome memorable encounter together, then you just won. And that's it. And I think if you always play the game and approach the hobby from this perspective, you're always going to get the most out that you possibly can out of it. It's always going to enrich your life. And I ultimately, that's what this channel is for, is how to win at D&D. Next up, why D&D? So, although almost everything that I have to say on this channel is going to be applicable to nearly any tabletop RPG, mechanically I'm going to be focusing entirely on 5th edition D&D. A lot of people may ask why. I don't think that it's too much of a mystery. I mean, after all, it is one of the most popular RPGs at this moment, with the exception of like, you know, wargaming like Warhammer, 40K, fantasy, etc. That said, back to the three things that I consider to be the most important elements of role playing. I actually think that fifth edition D&D kind of provides the best framework for that from a mechanics perspective, and also from the richness of lore and accessibility of pre-crafted encounters and campaigns and all kinds of non-player characters and supernatural beings already created and just ready for you to draw from and bring into your own sessions. I actually did not start my role playing adventures in the D&D system. When I was early teenager, middle school age, I was brought into it through the Palladium system of games, Rifts in particular, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a really cool kind of like post-apocalyptic magic infused with technology and aliens and gods. It's kind of all over the place. The mechanics were actually a little bit complicated, to say the least, especially where skills and combat were concerned. And there actually weren't a lot of pre-generated content to draw from as far as story arcs and pre-written campaigns and encounters ready to go. They provided a lot of random tables and a lot of background lore for you to kind of like springboard off of. But definitely an advanced system from that perspective, and that's probably why I didn't really stay into it, after I got more into video games, or once those became a little bit more engaging. I did get pretty into the tabletop wargaming, Warhammer 40K in particular. I really, really liked the way that the dice roll and the visual, physical representation of the battles kind of, it lived simultaneously in the real world and in my mind, and I although I really think, again, one of the things that kept me from really staying with it is, other than just a game that took multiple hours to play, there wasn't really a lot linking the experiences together. They were just kind of one-offs, and once the novelty of that wears off, there's not a lot left to bring you back. So it wasn't until D&D 3.5 where a good friend of mine kind of reintroduced me to the role-playing world. And just since then, it's just really been getting better, and I think that this 5th edition is the best incarnation yet. And it just provides such a good platform for people who are both experienced role players and new to the realm. I really am a strong advocate for it, and it really does the job as far as my 3 objectives and successful role playing are concerned. In addition to how D&D 5e suits me, I wouldn't be able to, feel like I could talk into a video camera and have much of an audience if it weren't for the fact that, D&D 5e is one of the fastest growing communities of role players out there. And there are already so many great channels out there providing a lot of ways to enrich your games and, provide some tutorials towards very specific things. I want to make sure to focus this channel specifically on like kind of holistic perspective, like how to start to finish, like have a hobby in role-playing games, not just individually, but how to share it with your friends too. If anything, I just want to add to the really rich community that's already out there. There's such a wealth of talent and knowledge accessible through the webs that, if I can just, be some small contribution to it would be great. Last but not least significant, D&D as a role-playing system actually can be played entirely for free. So even if you don't have the material means to buy books, etc., if you have the ability to watch this video, then you have the ability to obtain the rules and all of the material necessary to play the game in its most basic form. And really, like I said, the mechanics and all the written material out there is really just the bare minimum of what you need to play the game. So the only limit is your own creativity, and that's really a lot of what we're going to talk about, is how to improve that side of it, the creativity, the interaction, and how it all fits together. Okay, so what are we going to be covering on this channel? Well, the first major undertaking that I have planned for Taverns and Caverns is what I'm going to call a play-along campaign. This is going to be a storyline slash campaign designed for complete beginners to role playing and D&D. If you have no frame of reference, no friends who've been into it, no prior experience, nowhere to even know where to begin, this is where you would start. And I want to cover everything it takes to bring some friends together, and start a role playing game group. The campaign is going to be designed to take your group from levels 1 to 5. It's going to last 7 sessions. So there are going to be like seven parts or chapters to this play along campaign, and each one of them is going to be divided into 3 categories, and that's going to be world building, encounter design, and running the session. I think that from my experience and just kind of what I've talked to with other DMs and seen in how other DMs present their process, these I think are like kind of the 3 major steps to successfully running a role playing session and a long running campaign and story arc with these player characters. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to assume no prior knowledge. I'm going to provide all of the appropriate information. I am going to restrict material requirements to just having the core rules of the player handbook and the DMG, both of which I believe are freely available, at least in a PDF form over the internet directly through Wizards of the Coast. I don't believe I'm encouraging infringing on copyright. I believe there are free versions of this. If there are, I will be providing the links, and if not, I'll be using a different take. In the future, there may be more play along campaigns for different levels and different worlds, etc. But as of this point, I'm just committing to just this first one. After all, it is going to be about 21 parts in total, so that's already quite a significant undertaking. In addition to the play along campaign, I have planned on just filming myself crafting, whether it's painting miniatures or building terrain pieces or maps, etc. Anything that I do, I'm just going to start capturing it on film and maybe even narrating it as some form of a tutorial. Just if you're interested in adding these elements to your game, I'm a big fan of DM Scotty and Wylock and other great terrain makers out there. Black Magic Craft. Don't want to leave anybody out. I'm sure I am. But there's such a great community out there, and I've been really inspired by them, and I'd love to contribute some cool little tips and tricks that I've picked up and developed along the way. I'm not going to talk too much about mechanics. I feel like there's kind of already a wealth of information out there. I'm certainly not going to be focusing on like optimizing and power gaming at all. But there are some topics as far as like rules are concerned that I think are kind of important to know, just to kind of maintain the fluidity of the game, and also just because rules are one of the ways that various different people are able to engage in fair and constructive play together. So I'm going to be very sparing in what I talk about, but I've got notes on a couple of issues and topics, so we'll see where that goes. So that's it for the channel update, and I'm having a lot of fun getting this off the ground, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. So I look forward to seeing you in the future. Hope you look forward to seeing me too.